Welcome to the Fasthosts ProActive podcast, Spill the IT. Each episode, we'll sit down with some of the amazing ProActive team and chat through their experiences of the ups and downs of IT infrastructure management in small businesses. There's always plenty to chat about.
Well, welcome back, everybody, for another session of Spill the IT here at Fasthosts ProActive. And with me today, I'm really excited because we're going to be doing a deep dive into one of Fasthosts ProActive's customers. And with me today, I have Ken Roberts, who's the MD of Aurora Insight. Welcome, Ken. Thanks for coming along today. Good to see you.
Thank you, Graham. Yeah, been looking forward to this.
Absolutely. So, look, you're going to do a far better job at introducing yourself. Just give us a quick intro into you, who you are, and what you do.
Well, I'm a fire investigator and forensic electrical engineer, and we established Aurora Insight last summer to provide forensic engineering and fire investigation services and expert witness services to people in the legal profession, loss adjusters, major insurance companies, and also big businesses, major UK manufacturers of domestic electrical goods and electrical equipment.
So, really interesting. I got lots of questions on that. So how did you get to that point in your career? Because obviously, I think what you've just said there is quite a recent setup of the business. What's the backstory? What's given you all that credentials, that knowledge to be able to support business for those services?
Well, I've been working in this field for well over a decade now, so extremely familiar both with the nature of the work and the clients, and I'd like to think have a very good understanding of what their needs are. And for us, that's quite important. Yes, the technical work, actually understanding where things have gone wrong, how the fire has occurred, is really important. But equally, you also, I think, need to understand what the client, what the exam question is the particular client is wanting to answer. So for us, it's very much working with the clients to understand their needs and so best help them to achieve their aims.
So talk to me about some of the vertical markets, some of the customers you're dealing with, because that must cover a wide span of different industries and businesses. Just share with me who you work, what types of you don't have to tell me who they are, but what types of businesses you're working with.
Well, it can range from a fire and a domestic property, which is perhaps thought to be the result of using quite often an electrical appliance in a kitchen, probably simply because you have a lot of them in there. So the probability, although it's incredibly small given the numbers of appliances actually in the UK, but if it is going to happen, it's quite possibly there. So it's working out both where the fire started, was it at the appliance, or was it somewhere else, and then trying to work out what the cause was. Was it because there was something wrong when it was manufactured, or was it actually someone come to repair it and hadn't quite got the job done properly, and inadvertently it's led to a fire. So it also brings about talking to the homeowner and to understand, what they were doing at the time, if they were there, and also trying to do that in a very understanding way, because I imagine I've been fortunate this has not happened to me, but if you've had a fire in the house, you're probably not having a good day, and and it's trying to do what's necessary, but in a considered and appropriate and I suppose in a way a kind way. We're all people at the end of the day.
So I guess by the nature of your answer there, you must be working with sort of in insurance businesses, and so you get sort of deployed. We've got somebody making a claim, and we now need it to be investigated.
Ultimately, many of the vast majority of the cases actually ultimately lie with one of the big insurers, the sort of people you probably heard of, but there are layers between them. So typically you deal with a loss adjuster that will be tasked by the insurers to investigate, and as part of that they bring you in to look at what you think actually happened here, and often then that gets passed to some of the big law firms that have specialist teams that deal with these very particular type of cases that ultimately might end up in the High Court. So you go in one extent to working out in the field in your overalls, getting very mucky, to perhaps conceivably the next day you're in a smart suit giving evidence in the High Court. So it makes quite an interesting sort of
it's quite diverse, isn't it?
And quite a diverse range of skills that one has to sort of develop to make sure you properly serve your customers. But I would say it has its moments, like everything, but ultimately great fun.
Yeah. So is it typical, do you see sort of repeating patterns of things? So for instance, you were talking about the domestic fire safe started in kitchens and things like that. Is there almost like, do you go in almost like, well, I reckon it could be this, this and this? And usually one of those assumptions is, I mean, obviously you're going to get caught out from time to time, but do you see repeatable patterns when you're investigating things?
Yes, you sometimes do. And there are certainly in bits of equipment, as a lot of fires tend to be electrically related, an electrical fault. And with some things, yes, you might start to see a pattern emerging that might ultimately result in some sort of recall, or there are ones we all know about in the industry, known sort of issues. But again, it's very important to have an open mind, because I've seen plenty of cases where we've all, people like myself representing different parties, will go to, it could be a scene on industrial estate, and we might have an inkling of things we certainly want to look at, but just be careful that actually it might be something completely unrelated. So again, that's the joy that, sometimes you do get surprised in that sense, which sort of keeps you on your toes.
Is that a good day at the office when you get surprised?
Well, I think it is, because you don't, it makes sure that, it helps you make sure that the advice you give, you properly thought it through. You've not taken the what you might call the default option of just going, well, there's a known issue, it must be that. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. That to me is part of, if you like, the intellectual challenge of the day-to-day casework that we all do.
Yeah, interesting. Do you, is there like a central data bank? So if you've got case and you've reviewed something in a certain way, you might sort of put that. And so that's for everybody to see. And so, well, I've got a case over here that I'm going to look at. Is there anything that's gone on similar to that? Is it almost like, the legal profession where there's sort of precedent that's gone on before? Is there sort of where you would log your outcomes based on a scenario?
Within individual companies, the answer will be yes, or you personally, where you think, well, that's similar to something, because this is very much a field where it's learned through experience, sheer experience, and it might take you at least 5-6 years to become really sort of competent at it, and you're always learning. That's the important point. So within companies, you might be able to share information and look at previous cases, but otherwise then there are the obvious considerations of client confidentiality and things like that. But usually many of the features, many of the forms, many of the causes are, in generic terms, a relatively manageable set of things that you would sort of look for, and really sort of looking at, if you like, the sort of precedents might give you a clue for particular things unique to, that diesel generator or that sunbed that you're looking at. And you might find some information online, particularly if a manufacturer of a piece of electrical equipment or an appliance has actually done a recall, and there are various sites that can help you sort of have an idea. But as I say, always be careful that it actually might be something
completely
and related.
Yeah. So you spoke earlier, and you've spoken about recall. Is that part of your work? Do you get involved in, like, if a manufacturer might say, actually, we've got a repeating fault here? Do you get involved, or are you just distributing reports back into manufacturers to say, I think this product is in need of a potential recall based on my findings?
Much of what we do is advising clients on how what we think most likely caused the fire. Was it an electrical fault and so forth? Born of all that experience, separately, then we as a company are in a position to sort of assist manufacturers in their considerations as to whether to conduct a recall, because it's one of those things which is actually probably quite a finely balanced judgment, but one for them. Because if you're going to have a recall, you might want to think, well, what exactly is the problem I'm recalling for? If you're going to offer a fix, you need to know what you've got to fix.
Don't want to do it again, do you?
But equally, you don't want to happen that too many times, because arguably there's potentially a risk to life. So it's very much a call for the individual manufacturers, the subject matter expert of their particular equipment. But we certainly have the expertise, having seen emerging issues and trends, to help them with those considerations, which is an interesting offshoot from the body of work we've all done over the years investigating individual cases.
So you're obviously brought in when it's gone wrong. What do you think about compliance, the standard of products are, because obviously there are a lot of regulatory controls in making sure products are fit for purpose, safe, etc., etc. Are more slipping through the net? Do you think the general build quality of things is improved? From your perspective, what do you see?
I think that things manufactured in the UK are manufacturers generally well manufactured. People using the British standards, which generally provide pretty good guidance. Nothing's perfect, and the notion that you can produce anything that will never catch fire is simply a flawed sort of logic. And when things do go wrong, and this is something that the general public I think never see, is that actually I'm struggling to think of an exception to this, but the various manufacturers that I've dealt with through investigating fires actually take their responsibilities to want to understand how things have gone wrong, and make sure it happens again and put things right. It's probably not a great news story in some respects, because they want to do the right thing. But actually, I'm struggling to think people who don't want to do that. And sometimes I've been brought in, even when there's no involvement of insurance companies or loss adjusters or anybody like that, but brought in because something's gone wrong, they've contained it, no harm has really been done, they've had a go at trying to work out what the cause was, but drawn stumps, because it is a bit of a specialist field. And actually I worked directly for a number of manufacturers over the years, helping them to work it out, which is also quite a challenge, because they know their bit of equipment, they've had a really good go at it, and they can't work it out, and so they're turning to you, and so intellectually it's quite a challenge, because to then turn around and say, well, I haven't got an idea either. So far I've never had to do that, but they're particularly challenging, because the spotlight is most definitely on you to come up with the answer, and in most respects they're quite good fun. And it's very reassuring that people are taking these things seriously and responsibly in the UK. Things that come from afar, shall we say, do sometimes make me a bit
nervous.
A bit nervous, yes.
So we're here today at the Fasthosts ProActive data centre, and obviously you're an established customer of Fasthosts ProActive. I think you've just been walking around the data centre this morning.
Yes, we have. We have a really fascinating talk with Mark. Many questions. I think he survived the grilling that we gave him. But I've never been into a facility like this, and so was genuinely curious to come and see. But also actually to meet some of the Fasthosts team that I've got to meet via the ubiquitous Teams. People like Claire that is our sort of client success manager, and has been helping with the inevitable sort of issues as we bed in. Our sort of solutions expert Gary's been fantastic to work with, because rather as an engineer myself, not an IT one, very keen not to say this is a solution I want. Here's the problem that I want to solve with a managed server. What's the best solution? And please be bold. think out of the box. I'm happy to, we don't need to go what I might perceive to be a solution. You know more about it than I do. And it's been brilliant to work with him. And I have our own IT sort of consultant, James with me today, who speaks the same language as Gary. And so it's been brilliant, actually, as really what I see is very, an ongoing relationship with Fasthosts, to have those two to sort of meet and talk about things that, frankly, well, you get a warm feeling that it's absolutely all very good stuff, but I have no idea really what it's about.
So what were your problems? You spoke there about some of the problems. What did you look for in a provider, and how has Fasthosts ProActive sort of really supported you in that?
Well, very important for me is I wanted the business to be as paperless as possible, a virtual business, one I can scale up so as we grow, take on more clients, I can employ people, take on people and scale up the IT, and so get it right at the start. And I wanted a very secure, reliable, trustworthy facility for all our data. We have an awful lot of we do a lot of digital photography, scary numbers of photos and data, and for most of our clients, big law firms, we're all very sensitive to client confidentiality issues like GDPR. So it's also hugely important for that to be cited physically in the UK, for us to go through all the process of independent accreditation and auditing of the systems, not just our links to the server, but all the other IT that we all use these days, to make sure we had a robust business that wasn't prone to naughty people out there taking us offline, but also to make sure that we absolutely safeguard the information that we hold, often fairly sensitive information, for our clients, and that they are reassured that we are not just doing that. We are clearly seen to have done a very robust job on that. And having been a personal customer of Fasthosts since I think about 2008, was always looking for a business that was well established, I had confidence in, was in for the long game, which clearly investing in what we've seen today is a very clear physical evidence of that, made the perfect and logical sort of fit. So it was actually, hardly surprising. In fact, it was almost inevitable. We were probably going to be ending up here.
And I guess for your progress, and how you want to grow your business, ticking a lot of those compliance boxes when people say, do you adhere to this? How do you look after this? GDPR, data protection, et cetera, you can go, yep, you've got all that covered. So I bet, I suppose for you, that reassurance, that certainty as such, allows you to say, well, I'm not going to not get the business because I'm not complying in that area.
And so I say they're things that I think are becoming increasingly important for clients, and so far I think with those we've discussed this with, it's gone down extremely well.
So for anybody out there that would be maybe considering such a service, who are currently sort of managing their own IT infrastructure, what would you say to them right now from your experience, from your recommendations?
I would say that your time is best spent concentrating on looking after and working with your clients or your customers. So I always look at things in the sense of, do I need to do it? If not, then is there some better place? And for me, the core of IT being our managed server, then absolutely wouldn't hesitate to use Fasthosts, to do that, and that will take all your concerns you may have. I know of people who run their own little sort of outfit and so forth. Good luck to them if that's your sort of almost hobbyist type thing.
Sure.
But I think if you're as the world develops, then absolutely get on board with people like Fasthosts who do know what they're doing. We know we've had an excellent experience, and looking forward to continue to work with Fasthosts as inevitably technology changes, new ideas come along. I'm waiting for Gary to get back in touch as their solutions sort of expert to say, actually, there's this new thing coming along. And of course, as a dynamic business, always interested in new ideas, be it from Fasthosts or from others, that enable us ultimately to best serve our customers.
Well, that's all part of, I guess that's all part of the sort of the bracketed, the proactive part of what they do. They're already looking at your business beyond what you're currently doing.
I think very well put, absolutely. Yeah.
And sort of looking at that and saying, actually, this is, can we see where your business is, but are you aware of this? And we think you should do this sort of thing. Yeah. And as you rightly said, you're not a typical IT sort of specialist in what you do, you're a specialist, but leave that to them, I guess, and to advise accordingly. Well, look, that's been absolutely fascinating, Ken. It's always nice to get under the bonnet of customers to actually understand and sort of see what they do, and obviously sort of talk through the parallels of how a good infrastructure, IT infrastructure support can help. So it's been absolutely fascinating. Thank you for your time this morning.
Yeah, it's been equally brilliant to see behind the scenes today. Fascinating.
Thanks, everybody, and we'll be back soon for another edition of Spill the IT.